Welcome back to the fifth episode of Daily Book Dose. Today we're going to be talking about the second part of the fourth chapter of Family in the Nation. Um, today's part is going to be about education and the importance of education as well. So I want to start off with Plato's three virtues, which are spoken about in the book. The first virtue is intellect, which means wisdom or knowledge of life. Here, I assume by wisdom, it's more innate wisdom. Our sixth sense, um, just knowing. So it sort of comes down to faith as well. Um, Having faith in things and things turning out the way they will, and faith in the reality, and faith in education as well, right? Um, you can learn everything, but if you don't have the faith or the belief that it's real, that it's true, it's not really going to sink in, right? So it's just the knowledge of knowing before you actually know. Um, the will is also an important aspect of intellect, and by will, it's courage and capacity to act. So, 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 so it's very easy just to have the virtue of knowledge, of truth, of reality, right? But if you're not willing to act upon it, and if you don't have the courage to act upon it, it's not really going to change anything in life. I think a lot of education will come down to making change in yourself and making change in society, hopefully for the better. So will is a very important part because it's actually the part that turns that knowledge into reality, into a difference in the world. And I think that's what education really comes down to: how you can make a positive difference in yourself and in the world. And then finally, the very important virtue is emotion, which is temperance and self-control. So in um, so self-control and temperance, we've seen before in this book already that so many things have are good unto a certain level, and then they turn into bad, right? So many things, if they are not limited, they become innately negative and destructive as well. Even the creative power, right? If it's not controlled, it can very easily become destructive. Again, just the example of nuclear energy, right? If it's created and controlled to such a certain extent, it can power cities upon cities, right? But if it is not controlled, it can destroy countries upon countries. So education, as we know it, really talks about intellect. I mean, education in the Western world, or education, what is taught to us in school, really talks to us about intellect, and that also just part of intellect, right? It just talks to us about the wisdom part, and how we can methodologically study it or methodologically get it, but it doesn't even talk about so much about knowledge of life. And about will and emotion, I mean, it's almost ignored in the world that we live today. Now, these three virtues from Plato are extremely interesting because it draws back right into education being the key for a tolerant society. Education at home as well as education in schools. So it comes back to what we spoke about yesterday: the importance of tolerance, and and the vital element of harmony is actually tolerance, right? So if we want harmony in the universe, or if you want harmony in our nation, in our country, even in our home, and even in ourselves, it's the tolerance which we have to be able to live with, both the good and the bad. And education is the key to that tolerance, right? Education of your will, of your intellect, and of your emotion. Education should also be the driver to develop capabilities for an independent judgment, critical thinking about ethical reasoning, right? So education and knowledge, faith, conduct, which also is very similar to Plato's three virtues, right? Right, right knowledge, which is intellect, right right faith, which can be sort of emotion, and right conduct, which can be sort of will. So, there are similarities between the three founding, the three things that Mahavir said, as well as the three virtues that Plato sort of prophesized. What's also very important is the three vital energies, Ida, Pingla, and Shashma. This will come back to again, and I also will come back to again in the second book that we'll be doing, which is Ida, which is rest, peace, orderliness in the mind, right? So until a certain level, that's great, but if it's too much, it becomes laziness. Pingla, which means activity and stimulation. Until a certain level, it's good. If it's too much, it's ADHD. And Shushma, which means contact with the inner consciousness, right? We shouldn't strive for either Ida, we shouldn't strive for either Pingla. We should actually strive for Shushma. And if we have that, we've automatically got a balance of Ida and Pingla. Too little of Ida Pingla is bad. Too much is also equally bad, right? So we got to have the middle amount of both. And the way that we actually have that is through Shushma. Imbalance leads to physical and mental disorder. And our health, in addition to tolerance, tolerance is, health of the mind, but actually to have health of the body, it comes down to, again, very, very basic, right? Having adequate nutrition and efficient elimination. It just comes down to that, right? Our petrol, having, enough food, not too much, not too less, and also at the same time, whatever we digest, to make sure that we get rid of. And I guess if we can do that with food, we can also do that with all other things in life, because it actually comes down to something so simple. Even education is something so simple, right? Education is a means to ensure that we have enough of what we need, and once we have it, we can dispose of it, but take care of it, but also have all of the benefit out of it. But whatever is the waste, or whatever is not so good, we can ensure it doesn't consume us, and we can ensure that that's also taken care of in the right way. Now that goes to wealth also, that goes to knowledge also, that goes to obviously food also, but also relationships that we're in, right? Ensures that we're not too clingy onto anyone or any one group, and we take the positive out of that group and leave it at that. So today was better. I talked about less, but went a little bit deeper. Today was also good because finally we had this talk in the morning, and it's interesting because this project that I'm doing is also about educating myself, and that's the primary goal. And then putting it out into the universe as well, but educating myself in such a way that I've got the will, coming back to Plato's three virtues, I get the intellect, because I get the wisdom and knowledge of life from all of these amazing books. I also get the will, because I have the courage to do this and the capacity, hopefully, to act upon it, because once I've had this talk with you guys, it does change me, right? Just reading about something and flicking through it, I'm not going as deep, I'm not thinking about it as much, and actually talking about it, though the voice is going out, the message is also going in within me, and it is changing me, it is acting upon me, and therefore I'm able to act. And then emotion, the temperance and self-control. So, the self-control of being able to have this talk on a daily basis. That's also something, right? It's what, 5 days straight now. And the great thing about today is finally we have started doing it in the morning. This is something I always wanted to do, and really happy we're doing this. So looking forward to tomorrow's chapter, which is about awakening and the 3 stages of awakening. So on that, thank you very much. Have a great day.